Good evening. We're going to wait a few minutes and make sure that we have folks who are wanting to join us. So we'll wait to gather. Tonight on Iowa Healthiest State Initiative, our Mental Health Monday, we are going to talk about how to identify and cope with stress during this time. I see I've got some folks whose name I recognized are joining us tonight. A little shout out to Emily and Jennifer and Cassie. Nice to see you joining us tonight. We're going to wait and have a few more folks gather. Hello to you too, Tony. Like to everybody who is taking some time out of their evening tonight to join us to talk about how to identify and cope with stress. I see we've got a few more folks that have joined us. We're going to give it another few minutes actually, a few seconds I should say, and then we'll go ahead and get started. I don't know if many of you had joined last week when Dr. Amy Shriver hosted a live Facebook discussion around setting routines for your family. And I wasn't able to join live, but I was able to watch it. So if you weren't able to watch it last week, if you go ahead and go to the Facebook page for the Iowa Healthiest State Initiative, you will find it recorded. And it was actually very, very helpful, not just in preparing for this session tonight, but in reflecting on all the things that we're trying to do in our household. So looks like we've got a few more folks that have joined us. So I think I'm going to go ahead and get us kicked off. So thanks so much for all of you for joining this evening. So one of the things that that we're going to talk about has to do with our family and family stress during this time. My name is Stephanie McFarland, and I work for Des Moines Public Schools. I coordinate the behavioral health or the mental health services for the district. I've been a therapist and this is my first live Facebook. So for those of you that can give me some grace tonight, I would sure appreciate it. So, which is kind of a little bit about what we're gonna talk about tonight. So I feel like that if you've got some questions as we're going along, the first 10 minutes or so of our time together, we're going to talk a little bit about that, how to cope with the stress that's happening all around us, things that we are very much out of our control. What I'm going to do then for our last 10 minutes is kind of go back and take a look at some of your questions, and we can have some discussion about that. So I've got a few things, tips or things to take away during this time of stress during this pandemic. Nothing that I can think of in my adult life had really prepared me for this type of isolation and change in routines. And if you spent time watching Dr. Shriver, she did a great job of talking about those routines, which is really the first thing that that we can do is to keep those routines in place. There are things that are out of our control that are going to disrupt those routines now. So if, for example, working from home, schooling from home, I've heard a lot of folks talk about the term homeschooling, and this isn't really homeschooling. This is schooling at home during a pandemic, which is very, very different than most folks that I know that do homeschooling. The level of isolation that we have during this is very, very different. So having those routines in place are really important. Keep the ones that work. And as you're having to do some adjustment, do that adjustment as well. one of the things that everybody knows, sleep's very important, correct? So in my household, we have teenagers and we have a little, and the little just really wants to stay up with the older kids, which we found out that really kind of helped her sleep in more because she's pretty much night owl. So seeing her up a little bit enabled myself and my spouse to be able to have some more time in the morning time to get our work done while she slept in, and then gave us some time in the afternoon that we could do some more playing, some more different kinds of things that maybe we wouldn't have done at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So keeping those routines in place, use what you know. Secondly, being creative. All the things that we're going to be doing have to do with eat, sleep, exercise, work, and play. And everything pretty much falls into those categories. So how can you do things a little bit more creatively within the context of some of those activities? And so, for example, for exercise, we're not generally a family that does a lot of family exercising together. We do bike rides, but the weather hasn't been all that great. But one of the things that's been really fun is we call a pajama walk. So when the older girls were younger, we used to do that. But now with the little one, she just loves it because, who goes out and takes a walk in their pajamas in their neighborhood? Pretty silly. So some of those creative things that can bond you as a family in any of those 5 different areas. Some of the things that we've done for eating, for example, instead of eating at the dining room table, going and having a silly supper in the living room floor and having a picnic, going outside. But thinking in those 5 different areas of life, how can you be creative and do some fun things? Obviously, work is a little bit harder to do more creative things, but adjusting the sleep schedule kind of helped us. Not everyone's working from home during this time, obviously. And so if there are some video or virtual things you can at work with your kid at home or with your spouse. Play. Adults don't think of themselves as people who need to play, but we absolutely need to play. And the ways that we used to play during a non-pandemic time don't always work. However, you can be kind of creative. Some of the things my friends and I have done is to set up a Zoom knitting time. And so we had 10, 12 people where we're able to all connect with one another. And during a time that we might not have normally done that because we cut down on our transportation time when you just have to walk into another room and click on your Zoom meeting. So all of those things, think about the different ways that you want to play. Thirdly, managing your own anxiety. One of the things that I tell a lot of adults is that kids are, and if you're having some anxiety, your job is to regulate that anxiety in the ways that are helpful to you so that you know that because kids regulate off the adults in their lives. So if you're full of a lot of anxiety, and let me tell you, that is a normal, natural reaction to what we have going on just in everyday life, let alone in what is going on right now with this pandemic. But knowing that, we are in charge of how we think and how we feel and how we behave, and pretty much we control very little. And this is a time that really remember that. Those things and identifying those making, because we can't challenge what we name. So if we are having some excessive thoughts that are scary to us, finding ways that that brings me to the next point. It's called make a plan. How do you make a plan in ways that address some of those things that make you anxious? Because, if as a parent myself, one of the things that me is both of us got sick at the same time from this COVID-19. How would our kids manage? What would we do? And so having conversations or thinking through some of those things ahead of time, knowing that you might just having something to start with. So having that plan is really important. And then lastly, what I call communicate, connect, and that is for us adults, it is our responsibility to lead the way in using our words. Kids will often use behavior to talk about their distress. We don't often think about it that way, but it is. Behavior is really communication. And if kids could always use their words, they would. So to model using our words to identify feelings, or to talk about how stressed we feel, or to talk about how we're going to take care of ourselves. All of those things are really good modeling because kids take the lead for us and what they see us do. So when I say communicate, connect, and check in, is remembering all those ways that our family members like to do that. I'm like in the throes of raising teenagers, and one of the things that I forget is that they have different love languages as teenagers. Sometimes that reassurance for a 7-year-old, a hug, a kiss, and I love you, isn't always what feels reassuring to teenagers. And so using words that are for reassurance that are strength-based, confidence building, and appreciation, and knowing that those you know, remembering in the stress of things that sometimes those attitudes aren't always directed to us, right? That there's always going to be all that developmental stuff that's going to be continuing to happen when kids are stressed. But I do want to talk a little bit about some of the. So remember, I mentioned that behavior is communication. So some of those indicators that your children may be stressed, especially young children, and thinking about younger children, children 5 and under, you may have trouble. You may see them having maybe trouble eating, being pickier, having trouble falling or regulating to sleep, maybe having more what we call big feelings or tantrums. And adults too. They just don't look as cute as maybe they do when you're 3. But those big feelings sometimes can run the show. And so recognizing that in that moment, our job is to remain calm so they can borrow our calm until they can get to the thinking part of their brain and be able to talk through whatever it was that was bothering them. So some of the feelings would be you would very much see those during this time. I would say in the kind of 5 to 12, the older kids and the tweens, you may see those more defiance, maybe wanting more of things, and again, really a natural response. That's for all of us. The more anxious we feel, the more we are wanting to control things, and so when you offer choices or really set a limit and then offer some wait time before you really have them make a decision. Sometimes as adults, especially when we become more stressed, we start more on our agenda. And so you may see some more defiance behaviors out of kids in that area. Teenagers, more avoidance, maybe avoidance of talking about avoidance of family time, more isolating. Obviously, increased electronics, that's a very common thing. I think for us adults to do too, is to sort of check out, not do self-cares and any of those kinds of things that you might be seeing in your older teens or older kids, teenagers. Remembering like what's their love language. I've kind of talked about that a little bit. What I mean by that is how do they experience love from you as the parent? And it looks different. All kids experience different. Sometimes it's words, sometimes it's gifts, sometimes it's acts of service. So you can actually real quickly go on the love languages and talk a little bit and see a little assessment to kind of figure out what kinds of things help you connect with your kids. It also can be activities, not just how one experiences love, but how that communicate, connect, and check in occur. So it can be over a game. It can be actually just, a trip in the car. Sometimes we call those geographical cures. Change your geography, and sometimes that might change the attitude or the mood that's going on. Teenagers do great in the car when you don't have to look at one another. So sometimes let's just get out of the house and go for a quick trip around the city. those are some strategies that actually can hit some of those 5 different areas that I talked about. And most importantly, knowing yourself and knowing what your stressors are, and how to create a plan around that. So some of those stressors that you may need to reach out to somebody outside of your family is perfectly acceptable to do that. And in fact, there's no better time to do that. A lot of folks are realizing that just having someone to kind of talk through resources or talk through some opportunities to access some more professional services. Many of us have employee assistance programs. Most all school districts have student assistance programs. Being able to identify things through your health insurance or your mental or physical health provider, or resources on the Please Pass the Love Well, Make It Okay, the Iowa Healthy Estate Initiative, and Polk County Health Resources also has yourlifeiowa.org is a great place to go take a look and see some of those areas. So if you wanted some more information about some of the things that I touched on, Child Mind Institute is where I get a lot of my information. And as I was going through there today and over the last couple weeks, kind of saving some things for my own use, found that they have added a lot of information on their COVID link on their website. Des Moines Public Schools also has a COVID-19 family resource page. If you clicked on that, you may also find some resources that our group has put together, as well as if you are a family member of a student that goes to Des Moines Public Schools and you're needing to talk to resources to talk to someone about that, there is a link that you can click and someone will get back to you when you put in a little bit of your information and about some of the things that you may be interested in learning more about. So anyway, I hope that you found this part of the presentation helpful. I'm going to flip through here, and it looks like we've got a few comments and also kind of see what we have. So let's see. I've got, yes, anxiety. Anxiety, the most underdiagnosed mental health issue. Anxiety is a feeling, but can also really get in the way when it becomes chronic. And so, we're not sure how long this is, but one of the things to keep in mind is that if something gets in the way of those things I talked about, eat, sleep, exercise, work, play, those different areas of your life, if you're finding that it's taking some too much out of those areas, it might be a good idea. Oh, it looks like someone had a suggestion, took some fitness class through Zoom meetings. Again, that creativity and exercise. I probably would not want to do Zoom with a room full of people, but I could sure do it in the privacy of my own living room. So that would work. Let's see, what are the other questions? Someone clicked on the 5lovelanguages.com. Yep, love that, especially the ones for kids. And it's kind of slowing down here. Here we go. Oh yeah, choices are critical for youth. Yes, choices are critical for all of us. Let's see. Oh, the Calm app. That is a really, really popular app. If you haven't taken a look at it, please do that. There are all different kinds of apps that put your calm on, is what I like to call it. And ways that can help with breathing, ways that you can, I kind of fold in mindfulness, even though I use the term exercise. It's kind of all for me, kind of thrown in all of there together because it doesn't have to be aerobic exercise when it's in physical health together. So, so Child Mind Institute, Katie Nelson was asking about that. It's called Child Mind, MIND, and I can post that one. Oh, Sanvelo is an anxiety app. Thank you from Please Pass the Love. And let's see, I might have missed a question. So if anyone has any more, oh, Chris, how do we get ourselves out of a low mood to get motivated? Many of us are finding it difficult to focus. I think we're expecting that in many ways that we could do some of those same activities that we are used to doing, but throughout our day, and maintaining the same amount of focus, and all new and different. And if you are finding taking more frequent breaks, so if for instance you're having to work in a different part, you have to work at home and having to work in a different part of your house, those kinds of things, you may want to get yourself on a timer to be able to get up, walk around, maybe walk outside around your house, do some of those things, get some aerobic, I would say exercise, but really get your brain oxygenized. Sometimes when we get anxious and even a little depressed, we might not be doing our deep breathing from a place from the lower part when we're kind of breathing from the upper part here. And so doing some deep, slow breathing, that Calm app, or many of those apps really do focus on breathing. And that can oxygenize your brain to be able to be more in your thinking part of your place. Some other things that are helpful with motivation can be, if you're a list maker, finding that, checking things off and being able to do maybe work break may be helpful. So some of those stretches for long periods of time without getting up and moving aren't very helpful for our bodies and our brains. And I think lastly, giving yourself some grace and what we call self-compassion. You're not supposed to have your regular life be replicated now in your house. It just doesn't work that way. So having more realistic expectations, finding small victories or small accomplishments. I myself had tried to do what we call reframing, which was I'm not saying I'm at home, but I have the gift of time in my house. What are some of those things I've been avoiding? What are some of those things that I thought I'd never get to because life kind of brings too much busyness and too many other things to approach. So being able to kind of reframe how we're dealing with this time or what this time is giving us. Let's see. Someone put, thank you, Iowa Healthy Estate Initiative, put the childmind.org up there. I see that. If anyone else has any remaining questions, be good. And otherwise, I sure hope that you have enjoyed this. I certainly have for my very first time. Thank you for the grace for this time, and thank you very much.